So you need to all come up here. We have seats for you. Huh? I did not take my question. And actually, you can go back to it. So I can introduce these people. This is sort of an array of people from early to late. And two people turned us down because they had prior commitments. We had invited Ambreen Bhatti, who is now the city manager of North Lauderdale, and Brady Woods, who works for a consulting firm in Lakeland, and they could not make it. So well, we did pretty well here. We've got Billy Nemser, who is William T. Nemser, who is actually the president of the Alumni Association, graduated twice from SURP, DIRP, MERP. Now, okay, so then we have from the early years, don't look at me like that. Don Vargas, who graduated in 1995. Okay, so he was here at sort of the tail end of that early period. Josh Hoyman, who graduated somewhere in the 2000s early, 2006. Gloria Pudiak, who graduated in 2001. Lorraine Tappan, who graduated in 2002. And some guy named Clark Stevens, who graduated in 2007.
Very good.
Okay. So it's a range of people from all of those time periods that we sort of talked about earlier. They are all incredibly bright. No one graduated with a 4.0 grade point average because they all took classes from me. All right. So
Well, thank you for inviting me to do this. After next year, maybe I'll have to land a space shuttle at the airport or something. This is very difficult. Panel, but I think what I'll start with, work from right to left, starting with Don. This idea of creating the South Florida School of Thought, it's an exciting idea. It's something I think we can all appreciate having worked in this area for so long. In your experience, and I'm going to ask this of all of you so you can kind of, we'll keep these answers brief because we only have so much time. Right now, in your experience, do we recognize this interconnectedness, this interdependency?
On the fundamentals, we are always in agreement that this is a region, economically, socially, population-wise. When it comes to providing analysis and solutions for the common issues that, say, the Tri-County area faces, we continue struggling. And it's very simple. We have difficulties in bringing people from Palm Beach County to meetings here in Fort Lauderdale. And people from Miami-Dade County come here only when David Prosperi invites them to be part of a panel. So we still need to continue working on what, when John DeGrove tried to instill in us some good concepts, we still need to continue working on developing planning tools for governance, kind of South Florida Regional Planning Council model things that has a regional vision and that can integrate those challenges, those opportunities, Miami International, 200,000 jobs, those opportunities and the spillover effect of those engines, economic engines, and the social implications that they create into governance that makes sense from a regional perspective. Is the battle lost? No, it is not. It's just that we still need to continue working on that direction.
Josh, how do you see it? Are we interconnected?
Well, that was a very good response. You know, the challenge really is, even as a region, we have all these municipalities from 3 different counties, 4 different counties, and that is the real challenge, is having everyone be within the same school of thought when sometimes you have neighboring municipalities that are having issues dealing, vacating some right of way, so there's some challenges.
Is the invisible hand going to materialize? Motion says well.
It's going to take 20 years.
I think there's many regional initiatives, regional approaches, there's regional planning councils. I'm not sure what the question is. Are you asking, is it working?
I'm saying in your day-to-day experience as a professional planner, a member of the planning community, do you see there's a recognition of this need for interconnectedness, or do you see it happening? Because I know in my day-to-day work, it's not something I see regularly. And I have my own slides, so.
Okay, well, my perspective is very different from a lot of people here.
Sure.
I used to work at South Florida Regional Planning Council, so every day was a regional look, a regional perspective, and a regional approach. I now work planning for Children's Services at the Children's Services Council. So it is Broward County. So we look at it county-wide, and yet we are always looking at how do other CSEs do it in other regions. We look at Palm Beach County, we look at actually the entire state of Florida. So we actually look statewide now. So
we've located the shill. Okay, that's a very interesting perspective because you have a different experience than a lot
very
of us.
different,
Right.
very different.
Right.
Well, I want to ask the audience, how many people here are from South Florida? Okay, that's probably about 30% of the room. When I was in the program, I remember early on Dr. Murray getting a lot of job opportunities in her office, and a lot of planning students were looking for work in their field. And a lot of these opportunities were coming from other parts of the country. And she expressed frustration that the planning students were interested in leaving South Florida. They were too connected. And strangely enough, they had a sense of a place. So only 30% of you raised your hand to say you were from South Florida. But if you visited London, what would you say? How many of you would say you were from Miami if you were in London? So I think we need to own South Florida. I think Dr. Prosperi said that the civic pride for South Florida is fairly low. I think it's time to own it. I think tools and regionalism is coming up. I think people will begin to do that. But, it starts with us. Let's go ahead and start owning ourselves as South Floridians.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, this is a reaction panel, and I wanted to have one reaction first off, and that is, this is a title only Dr. Prosperi could come up with. Speculations about the development of multi-scalar complexity systems approaches to both understand and structure cognition of the South Florida urbanized region. I got that in my mailbox, and I thought that was some sort of joke, and then I saw it up here, and I was like, nope. My input is that we have plenty of plans. We've been planning for 30 years, but there seems to be real disconnect with actually doing. And we love to, I couldn't tell you, just looking on the shelves and seeing how many 30-year-old plans, it's like, oh, that's smart growth. Well, we got it back then, we've got it this whole entire time, but then when it comes to doing, there's a gap, and that's because we're not a very politically active community. If you go to city commissions, county, who's actually been to a county commission hearing? Yeah, it's not very many people, and then if you do see the people that do come, it's the older, I hate to say it, but it's the older community that doesn't see it as a region. I think a lot of the young practitioners, a lot of young people do see it as a region. But when you actually see the political process in effect, which, whether you like it or not, politics is how things move down here, and how it moves anywhere, there's a real gap. And then what's politically active? And the young people, need to get politically active. And that's where I see.
Thank you.
Election cycle, politics don't always work with the long time frame that's required for some of these initiatives. But Don, reacting now to Dr. Prosperi's presentation, would you give us a little summary what you thought of it?
Well, we planners are good first at planning our time, right? And I'm saying that because by way of introduction, I want to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Prosperi for the opportunity he gave me a number of years ago when I first came, and I said to him, so how do I pay for this? I didn't ask how much it was. I said, how do I pay for this? And probably he wanted to say the same thing that he said now, don't look at me with that kind of face. And he said, why don't I give you a fellowship? And he paid me to come to school. That was good, and it was something that I continue appreciating, and I'm grateful for that kind of extending me an opportunity. And when I came, interesting, when Dr. Prosperi is making his presentation, I'm looking at his style, his substance, and the only difference is that today he had the PowerPoint. But that style of analysis, trying to find what are the common issues that I have in front of me and what can be identified as relatively priority number 1, number 2, and number 3 was what I observed in my interaction with him for about maybe 4 years. I was in the program for 2 years, but in relationship with the unit for about 4 years. And that is presented tonight as well. I remember one time that he said when I had a head-on confrontation with a faculty member, and I told him I want to get out of this program. And the very same reasoning style that he used to, I didn't write that sentence, that's too complex for me. The very same rational processing that he used tonight, he used to persuade me that getting out of the program was probably going to be something to be regretted for life. Tonight, he revisited the 3 points that I may say are very good that I took from the program when I was here 13 years ago. Plan for people, not places. Plan for processes, not places, and plan for governance. Although those are not the 3 points that he emphasized at the very end of his presentation, I didn't make a note which ones those were. These, to me, this is the center of his presentation, continues being the central challenge of this area, of this region. How do we plan for people? How do we plan for processes? And how do we affect the way in which we govern ourselves through way of participation, whatever it means. So in that regard, I am taking those 3 points as an emphasis on something that we need to continue paying attention. People, processes, and governance.
Josh, what do you think of the concept and the presentation? Your thoughts? Really, overall, I think it paints somewhat of a bleak picture. Right? Like we missed the boat, as you said. But not planning for places is the one strategy that's evident here. There's several examples of places here that are nothing because they don't have any people that go to them. You know, right over here, just go anywhere and you can find those. The advantage I think South Florida has is we know the extent to which the region's going to be. We're built out. You don't have to plan for westward development. So we have our work cut out for us. We know which we can only go so far. So I think that's a benefit. And really just the future theories of regionalism and if there's a school of thought that's going to come out, and you know it's going to take a long time. It's going to take you 20 years or maybe even longer. Then you know right here is really the place where the idea is born and where it should be pursued. Laura?
I couldn't agree more with you, Dr. Prosperi, when you said planning for people, not places. Excellent point. And processes, not places. However, where I differ from you is where you said planning is about drivers and not the outcomes. And perhaps that is the problem with planning, and that's not the way it should be. We should be planning with outcomes without outcomes, planning is a joke. We have, as you said, these beautiful plans, but not a beautifully designed